Hello, everyone. Welcome to part four of the Random Flow for Beginners series. And in this video, I want to focus on the panel cloth operator and the different methods you can use it because it has certain behaviors that can be triggered when using mark sharp edges and also edges with seams. So this is a great operator to use in combinations with the other hard surface or more hard surface inclined random operators, as you have seen in my shorts. So the original premise on why this was made is, of course, the panel padding, the cloth, like those padding that you see that's like kind of puffed out. So it's kind of like this panel cloth. Actually, let's just bring it to the quick favorites so we can use it quickly. And we have different presets here. So uh, I'm gonna get to this in a bit, but let's just use this. So this is the padding effect. This is destructive and non-destructive as well, depending on the presets that you're using. Remove faces means that it's going to remove the your original selection. Cuts one and cuts one heavy and cuts one puff without the keyword remove will keep the faces. But uh, if you edit something like the shrink, it will clip through the original faces, and you might want an effect that actually goes inward. So, for example, this one here, I increase the resolution and affect the shrink. Oops, they did not remove faces. Oh, it's just the I don't think it's possible to shrink past the negative or have a shrink. Oh, it's possible. Wait. Sorry about that. Remove faces and this one. We can flip the normal and you can have this effect. Versus if we keep the faces, the presets compared to the other random operators starts at subdivision level one, and you have to increase it carefully. Okay, so with the faces maintained, you can see that we can't see the effect. Okay, so you have to use to see the effect to avoid the clipping. You can, of course, get rid of the faces and flip. Okay, and the other presets are. Oops, I still use the other presets are heavy means it's using gravity. You can see there's a bit of a drop off. You can also increase this. So this is soft minimum, but you can enter a much higher value to go past the soft minimum of one. So you have that. And we have cuts one puff, which is using a higher value of pressure. Wait a minute. Um, yes, higher value of not higher value of pressure, higher value of shrink, which is negative zero point 0.2. There we go. And we also have gravity as well. So shrink kind of works in reverse. It it gets increasingly stronger as you go up the negative value or go down in negative value. There you go. Okay, so the faces, let me just limit to solve this. For example, we select this faces right here. Oops. This can also work in edit mode. Okay, cuts one, remove faces. Let's increase the resolution. We have the split mode. Split mode, none, of course, no split. Seam, it means that it will cut or split, literally split the edges, the vertices in the edges that are uh, that have seams, and we have the angle. You can see the split right there. The angle are is basically sharp edges. There are the have this Blender has this same terminology with sharp edges. Sharp means marked sharp, and then we'll also have the sharp edges that are edges that have sharp face transition depending on the angle. So it's kind of confusing sometimes. So I'm going to just say edges that have sharp transition, their faces. See their length. See this edge here and this face and this face. They have a sharp transition. Okay, and this is what it's doing here, and we can control the cut angle right here. So with seam, we can mark the seam or the edges with seam, for example, like this, not crease. Control E and mark seam. Then if we select the faces again, um, this needs to be contiguous. Again, it needs to meet non-manifold edges and edges that are or vertices that have their edges also marked sharp or marked with seams. So in this case, because the script literally removes the unselected faces, we can treat this the border edges of the selection as non-manifold. So the edges with seams stops there. You can't do this. Although you can do this, it will result in something like that. Okay. If you want that effect, I guess you can do it. It's not like the a split crease in random panels where you have to do it continuously. Like so, yeah, you can get this effect. So it splits the. So let me just create a two island split. So they're split in the middle. This means that this is another face group and this is another face group. So oops, Q panel cloth. So in this way, since we have two separate panel islands or face groups, we can now use randomization. Where's the seed value? Oh, cloth seed. There you go. You can assign different values for the islands, and there you go. The randomization would not happen if you only have a single island like this. Oops. Again, it's just using the menu. So there's no randomization with this. When you operate the cloth seed, there's no randomization. It only operates with actually, yes, there's no randomization because there's only, wait. Uh, Let me rephrase it. There is randomization, but you have to use random. Okay, sorry about that. There is still randomization, but you have to go to the random transform. Uniform means it's using uniform values, and we have min max for the values. The randomization will happen between the minimum and the maximum. Sorry about that. You don't need separate islands. You just have to switch between modes. Okay. Sometimes I forget about uh, some of the features of the random operators because when I'm using something more and less of that particular operator, I kind of forget sometimes. Okay. You can also create pinching effect. Let me just remove this. Your seam. You can create a pinching effect using the mark sharp. If we mark sharp that instead of the seam, the final thought operator will pinch that area. It will not be split. This is still a what do you call this? This is still a single island, but it's pinched in that area. So mark sharp has a lot of uses. Oops. So you can create a bunch of effects with that. There's sharp. And if we select boundary loop and mark sharp this boundary loop, and oops, create a cloth here, and then um, pin. Oh, no, no. There we go. So you can see pin mark sharp boundary edges. Okay, it pins the edges here, and you can make it look like that. And you can release it using this. You can see it essentially fell down. Okay, you can pin it. Preserve corner pin. Preserve pinning on sharp corner verse based on angle. Okay, this is different. This is this way, or not this way. This or it's how it's used. Okay, final cloth. Okay, based on angle. Preserve corner pins based on. There you go. So this is its effect. It basically tries to pin the vertices based on the angle. So when you're dealing with this kind of geometry, you can use that. Something like 1 degree doesn't. Okay. And of course, you can use that to create something like this. For example, Alt E, extrude vertices, and these edges we're going to separate. Okay, and let's kind of treat these edges as like tent poles. So I just curve. No, I just select edges, control the thickness. Let's kind of just scale this a bit. There we go. And mark sharp these edges. Oh, mark sharp. Okay, select everything and then panel cloth. This is going to pull towards the puff towards the top. We're going to flip the normals. So remove faces heavy. We're going to use the gravity. Flip normals. So something like that. So the tint is kind of falling down. Of course, you can control the effect using the bake frames. So the speed of the operator is of course relative to the dependent on the amount of faces that you're using and also the subdivision that you're using. Okay, so you can see the effect right here. And that is the if you use this, so it's going to pin the vertices and the boundary edges. If you unpin this, if you disable this, it's going to just pin the cloth to the corner verts that are sharp, unless of course we increase the value, reserve corner pin, or use pin, or disable pin. Okay, so you can create stuff like, uh, so this was primarily just intended for, again, the panel padding, but it has, of course, it has, let's separate this. It has generated a life of its own and can actually be used for other stuff. Edges to curve, edges to curve. Okay, let's see if we can create a flag. It doesn't have window, so probably just gonna fall down. I use them. I use the menu again. Pin. Oh no 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 no. Let's mark sharp. This we leave this unmarked, so it pins and disable pin. Woo. Oh, serve corner pin. There we go. So this kind of unpins everything, even if the edges are marked sharp or not marked sharp. Okay, probably because of the shrink. Okay, so yeah, you can create a. I don't know how to. Why is it? It's actually kind of rotating. Probably of our because of our settings. Okay, the pressure, the mass. Okay, so something like that. So you get the idea of the pinning. So to let go of the pinning from the mark sharp edges, you disable this, and this as well. Okay, now we're going to go to object collision. For example, these are our objects underneath the cloth. We're going to let the cloth fall down this primitive cubes, which are going to act like boxes. Okay, now on top of this will be our plane. Now, to use this as object collisions or object collision, you have to select them, and the last active object should be the cloth. Okay, now select everything from the cloth. You don't need to select anything from the other selection, but of course Blender, with Blender now, when you select everything and go to edit mode, you can actually access all of these objects in edit mode and use tools at the same time, which is kind of great. But yeah, you don't need to select faces from the other selection. You just need to select from the active object, which is going to be our cloth. Okay, now let's actually set this higher. You can we can preserve the cloth actually and just use the I'm using it again. I'm use so heavy with the gravity. Well, oh, this should be our active. So heavy with gravity. Then uh, should I flip? No. Okay, let's just get rid of the face so we don't see it. Heavy. Then unpin object collisions. Where is it? Where did it go? Oh, it went up. Okay. Flip normals. Increase the subdivision. And okay, there you go. It hit the objects. We just need to make the quality stronger. Not this uh, collision. And also we have object distance. This is kind of like the padding between the collision points and increase the subdivision a bit more. And bake frames just still not catching. And there we go. Increase the quality. We probably need to add a bit more faces to the our cube. There you go. Pressure is probably yeah, it's just probably our setting. So zero shrink and increase the this. Let's go back to 10. Increase the bake frames. There you go. So you adjust the settings and we increase the collision as well. It's not the collision quality. I mean, yeah, we need to add faces. Let me just add faces here as well. Okay, select everything and make our cloth mesh active. Increase the subdivision. There you go. And bake frames. This part here is not reacting very well. Let's get back to 5. There we go. The object distance. If, however, some areas cannot still like whatever you do, it won't really fix the it won't like there's their overlap of oops. So for example, like this, if you have a problem like this, and whatever you do, it just won't uh, go away. You can go after the operation. You can go to scope and use something like inflate. So this the normals is kind of reversed right now. So let's recalculate. That didn't fix that. Manually flip it. There we go. And you just fix the problematic areas like that. Okay. Object mode. Okay, let's do that again. Increase the subdivision slowly. So now it's reacted differently. Okay. And let's adjust our uh, object distance and thickness. There we go. So it's getting slower because of the amount of resolution we're dealing with now. Let's go to let's go back to 12 or 5. Go back to frame 1. And if you're having problems, go back to frame 1 and increase the big frame again to refresh the physics. Okay, so that's how you use that. Use panic cloth for that. Okay, now for another effect, the the same method, but we're going to use it for use it another cool effect. Okay, so if for example you want to hint objects inside an object using the cloth, let's give this like try to give the panel cloth faces or make the panel cloth faces more or less equal in size to make the cloth mesh look more even. Okay, I just separated the cloth area, and inside the cloth area I'm going to create a bunch of stuff, just some basic shapes that will hint at the objects inside. You can use your own model for this, but be sure to like bring down the resolution a lot. So you basically just duplicate that object and bring the resolution down, and then you can use it for object collision. Because higher faces means Blender will of course process that. Let's put a cylinder here, rotate. Come on, boy. But where do we place this? Now, we just have to make sure that there's no clipping. The objects does not overlap or clip the cloth mesh. And then select everything. Make sure that our cloth mesh is the one active. Select every face from the cloth mesh. I'm just going to save this. Okay. And then use panel cloth. Let's go for remove the face. We're going to remove the faces because we want to see what's happening. Heavy. Okay. So this is using subdivision level 1. Let's go to subdivision level 0 and object collisions and increase the we have 10 bake frames actually. There we go. Increase the subdivision to have more faces. 0.1 mass. Oops. Pressure is zero point 0.5 or 1. Shrink. Let's set shrink to 0. See if that does anything. And increase the bake frames. Okay, let's increase the shrink back to zero point 0.1 to have wrinkles. Now you can see the we're getting a hint of what the objects are inside. So this is right now. This is using gravity. The cloth is falling down and then hitting the objects inside, kind of hinting their shape. Increase the quality. Let's use 10. Oops, that's too much. It didn't hit the object right here. Let's go back to 1. Okay, it didn't. Do we have it selected? I don't think we have it. We didn't have it selected. Okay, that's why I didn't hit it. That's why I didn't react to the physics, the collision physics. There, oh, too much. There we go. Let's actually reduce the object distance. This time, an object thickness is also 0.01. The effect of panel cloth is not animated, it's baked. Okay. Okay, so we have this using gravity. Now we can going to try another effect like that. But this time we're not going to use gravity. We're actually going to shrink the mesh and there we go. Let's increase the cuts and create the collision by doing that. Okay, bake frames. Let's set this to 5. Pressure is 2. Margin. This is basically just the margin from the border edges of the original selection. Okay, shrink some more. Okay, so now you can see the hint of the objects inside by using shrink, by shrinking the mesh more. Let's put a circle. Yeah, it's to really make you see the result. Not circle, UV sphere. Select everything except for this. Make the cloth mesh active. Use our operator and increase the resolution carefully. Okay, just one bake frame. Must. Let's experiment with the settings. Whoops. There we go. Increasing the quality. Okay, so something like that. Then you can just go in and add more stuff using the sculpt. Okay, so we achieved this using shrink and then gravity. Just try and trigger object collision. So self collision means it will collide itself. This will add another processing footprint, making the operation slower. So just be careful. Object collisions. There you go. Quality is 5. 10 bake frames. 30 and then shrink. Let's use cut 1. Shrink. There you go. Let me see if I have something else. Individual seed, random effects for the separate face add. Okay, that's for randomization when there are split islands. And of course, you can add subdivision level. This is using the subdivision or subsort modifier. Oops, which adds a subdivision modifier to the plot mesh. You can either control the edit the levels or just remove it if you think you have enough faces for the fidelity of the detail in the mesh. Okay, so let's delete everything and create a plane. So that's the many methods or workflows you can use panel cloud for. And I'm going to create a panel model here and then use array later to create multiple copies of this. So this is the original premise for the operator, why I created the operator. Because of there's a lot of sci-fi models out there that has like cloud effects. So this is why I made it. I was initially skeptical if my method of scripting, how it worked, oh, will actually work, but I'm glad it did. Okay, remove faces, flip normals. Okay, separate. We need this to be quad. Something like this. Okay, let's create pinching effect, mark sharp, and then we're going to create panel de- uh, panel cut details on this hard surface part here. So if you're adding using loop cut and slide to add an edge loop, you can see that the shape that is using right now is the average direction of these two edges here. So you can actually change that by pressing E. Now you can see the small red dot here. That means that it's adjusting to the direction or shape of this edge here. And when you press F to flip, it's going to use this edge here. So pressing E without that feature is going to use the average. Pressing E, it will let you select between the two parallel edges by pressing F. So we're going to make it straight like that because the random panels likes straight face loops. We're just going to randomize this part. Okay, and random panels. The square 1% even depth. And now you can see that there's no detail because the normals will flip. The details are actually on the other side. So if this happens, one way to find it out is, of course, looking at the back. Oops. Looking at the back or pressing Z, Shift Z to go to wireframe view or toggle this here. Pressing Z and enabling wireframe, you can see the faces there. So when that happens, you can just recalculate. Let me see. Face tree. Okay. Now it's correct. Now we can use random panels. This is a bit busy. We're going to modify the depth. Panel size minimum is 5 and maximum is something like 40. So bigger islands, less detail, more relaxed areas. Smaller islands means more detail and more. We're going to get rid of that part there. A more busier looking mesh. Okay, let's adjust the depth value. Okay. And bring in some details. Intrude. Create some margin. Okay, fade smooth. And let's add our materials. But first, let me just create random vertex color here. Island. And use 6 stops. Okay, now we append the materials and use panel cloth here. Our flow cloth, I mean. And this one is our flow metal inverted. And this one as well. Our source mesh, our flow metal inverted. There we go. And we're just going to modify the panel cloth. Uh, our flow cloth material, I mean. And this one here, we're going to use the vertex color instead. Our source mesh doesn't have a vertex color. We're going to set it manually using Creative Flow. Like that. And the, our face is buried into the. Oh, I. When I offsetted this, I still have this selection right here. So that's why it got to this state. This is actually basic repair. So just delete the faces. So just remember your selection before you do another one, your old selection. Then Control F, then press G. Okay. Margin is 0. Scale is, there we go. To add a new material, I'm going to use emission for this. And assign our emission. So something like that. Actually, let's make this a bit smaller. More. Or something like that. Okay. So to make this lighter, you can always decimate, limit dissolve. You can triangulate if you want, doesn't really matter. This is, you can remove the triangulation anytime using Alt J and 180 degrees for the max face angle and max shape angle. Now we can apply the mesh. Oops. Let's remove the subdivision, apply, and then you can join the mesh. Let's select everything. And with random flow, you can, there's actually a feature here that lets you join the objects. Plane 002. Okay. So the black part is because it has no vertex color, but doesn't matter. It's not using the R flow material or R flow metal material. Okay, so when you use this operator to join the objects, it has created vertex groups for each of the objects, so you can select them. So this is our source mesh, this is our panel cloth, and this is our plane 002 our panel. And then you can, if you want to separate them, you can use this split mesh and it will split the objects based on this vertex groups. So for now, we want it actually joined. And now we can use something like array. If you want to make this lighter, you can collapse the edges manually and still keep more of some of the details. You can't use the limit dissolve is going to create that. Okay. And let's use array. You can duplicate this to create array, another array on the sides. Shift D. And in the second array, in the offset X, press 0 and 1 for the Y. There we go. So you have this panel, um, side panel. You can use it for side panels, floor panels, or ceiling panels. And we have the cloth. We have the hard surface element, and we have the cloth part. So this is what it's usually or originally made for, the panel cloth. But of course, it has generated a life of its own and became something more than the than its original self. Okay, let me just look for a file that actually has, I think, this one here. So this has cloth effects, and let's look for another one. Oh, this one. This is another side panel with screws, and let me look for a character, an organic. There we go. So this was also created using using the random panels with merge panels on, and then I just use the smoothing parameters, and then some parts of it I use panel cloth, like here and here and here, and just use like marked seams to create areas of separation and pinching, and then manually detailed this other stuff here using panel cut of add-on, the panel cutter add-on. Okay, here's another one using the object collision method to hint at objects inside. I have deleted the objects inside, but the shape remains. And this is the topology. It's up to you to select what resolution or subdivision to use. Let's just reset the rotation. Okay, so that is how you can use panel cloth. So you can see there's it's kind of like the opposite of random panels, where it also have a lot of uses. So this is organic, and this is hard surface. This can also be organic, and combining them both, you can create a lot of great stuff that, of course, mixes hard surface and organic surfaces. Okay, so that is with the panel cloth. That is the panel cloth operator, and I hope you learned a lot about it. And yeah, if you have any questions, use the comment section below, or better yet, the Discord community and the usage info button. I should probably change this to help, because some people doesn't really click it. I think the help keyword would be more obvious. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think is the best keyword here to make people click it the first time they use random flow? Click this with exclamation mark. Mm, yeah, help info, or probably the most extreme is probably click this before you start. Okay. Yeah, so that's it. And again, thank you for your support. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you get alerted um, when I create a new video for this series. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.